And good morning to all of you. And as we are now live, we are recording, we are streaming on YouTube also. For some of you who are joining the very first time, just wanted to let you know that this is called the Multimillionaire Forum. We do this online session on the first Saturday of every month. We pick up a topic which is most relevant, sometimes with our own choice, sometimes when some of you have recommended a topic. This is an information educational thing, so it's basically free for all. Everybody is welcome to join, so you can circulate to friends, family, groups, whoever you like. And there is no vested interest. We don't talk of any single product, or there is no marketing. There's nothing that happens here. It's just an opportunity for Transcend and for me to invite some of our friends, clients, families, to everybody to come together. So at least in this very busy world, we get to meet, even though it's virtually, we get to meet once a month, and then we have a little discussion on a particular subject. So typically we, do this little presentation for 25 to 30, 35 minutes, and then we have about half an hour of Q&A. In the Q&A, you are free to ask anything that you want because regulatory reasons, we don't speak of any product, any stock, any company in this particular presentation because it's out in the public media. But the moment this is stopped, we stop the recording, we stop the live streaming, and then we have the whole field open for us to speak and interact anything that we want on any particular investment or similar. All right, so let's basically shoot and straight away dive into this presentation. So, some of these graphics that we sent to you, uh, we thought that wars only began in 1914 when we had the First World War, right? Please feel free to unmute yourself, okay? And whenever you want to stop me, and if there is something that you want to discuss on that subject matter, we do it right away. But having said that, so most of us in our most recent memory have the fact that 1914 was World War One, and then 1939 was World War Two. So, as far as we can remember, we think in terms of wars, World War One, World War Two. Then, because we are India, so we will remember some of the conflicts that we see that were happening with Pakistan. Uh, we will then, maybe some of us who are more in connection with what's happening in terms of current affairs around the world would remember the Gulf War. We will remember some tension happening between North and South Korea. We will obviously be in the know of Ukraine and the Russia war that happened last year. And then some of us in the most recent war that we are all talking about is the Israel and Palestine war that's going on. But I have a question to ask you. So when I was doing research, like I was mentioning to Ravi a while earlier, that there were some very interesting facts that came out. There were some shocking facts that came out. And uh, uh, can you please mute someone who's accidentally on mute? Sir, can you please take care of that? Yeah. So what I was saying is that some facts that came out were really subtle, some were shocking, some were, oh really, I mean, is that also so I mean, there was all sorts of mixed reactions. I was feeling it's going to be sensational, and so some parts of it were, but some parts of it were like a little bit of a surprise. So the question that is on your screen, and feel free, anyone answering, I mean, anyone can answer this. How many wars and conflicts are happening right now? Let me repeat the question. It's written on your screen. But how many wars and conflicts are happening right now? Anyone want to take a guess? Raise of hand, or just give me a word. Anything. How many conflicts are happening around the world? Any take a wild guess. Throw a number. Several. Gopika says, yeah, okay. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Right. Do you see what's happening here? Now let me share what this picture is actually talking about. The ones that you see in maroon is major wars. So wherever you see maroon, that's obviously like a major war going on right now. The red patches are the where places where there are some sort of wars going on. The dark yellow is the minor conflicts, and the light yellow is just some little clashes and political tensions, and or otherwise some sort of arms conflict happening. But if you look at this world map in general, you will see, oh my God, I mean, pretty much Australia, South Africa, South America, and Canada, Alaska, only those are the white places. Everywhere else in the world, there is something going. So it's kind of a little crazy, right? I'm going to share something else with you. Uh, and, you'll again be surprised. These are the list of conflicts which I found going on. Okay. And this is on Wikipedia. You can do it. This was actually shocking, startling, very disappointing. And at the same time, there was a little bit of positivity and little reassurance also in this whole thing. And the reassurance was really, wars to kab ka ho raha hai? I mean, wars are going on and they are going on forever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly just search wars in terms of Russian wars. Okay, Russia and Turkish wars, 1568 to 1919. For the last 350 years, there is some tension going on. Chechnyan, Russian, 200, Polish and Russia. I mean, look at the disturbance. This is not happening today. It's happening historically. Polish, Russia, Russia, Persia. It's crazy. And for example, they're fighting. I mean, everybody seems to be fighting with everybody. So now, if you, for example, look at Israel, the most recent war. Okay, now look at this one. We are thinking on 7th October, Hamas launched some attacks on Israel with those 5,000 odd rockets. And we think there's a new war which is broken out. But I was a little surprised. I mean, a lot of us were, these conflicts have been going on for the last 75 years. And it's the same way when we speak of India-Pakistan conflicts, or look at the Kashmir conflict right on top in front of you here. That's been going on for 76 years. Arab-Israeli conflict going on for years and years together. So what conclusion I sort of drew is that actually the world is in a state of conflict ever since mankind has been around, which was very, very disheartening to see. But at the same time, it was also positive, saying that should we really be impacting, or should we really be reacting the way we react in terms of, war ho raha hai, the markets will go down, things will get destroyed, so on and so forth. Take me to the presentation again. So I actually felt that maybe sometimes we overreact. Maybe sometimes, the media has fed us with so much information that we tend to overreact. And so very often we sometimes don't have all the facts together with us. So point number one that I want to establish is conflicts are not something new. They have been happening forever. I thought that I will see some amazing facts, that happened in the last 100 years, but I was surprised. I went all the way down to 3,200 before Christ. I mean, for 3,200 years of that and 2,000 years currently, 5,000 years of human history, and there has hardly been a period which has been without war or without some disturbance, whether that war happened for political reasons, economic reasons, or reasons of ego and revenge, or whether the wars happen because of completely other reasons. The reasons that we see in some of our movies, like Padmavat and some of these recent movies that we've seen. So move on, please. Next slide. So timeline of wars. You can study, it's just academic interest, but there are so many of these wars that have been going on through and through. Very disappointing. So we feel that mankind is cannot, humans can't really survive without a war. And that's the conclusion that came out of that. Next one, please. So wars, as you saw, go on for a very, very long time. 50 years, 70 years, 200 years. These conflicts are just not resolved. And the problem of war is that once this war starts, which is what I concluded, you can't really go back. In the sense, you can't really suddenly stop the war. If there are two parties, I mean, think about, let's leave war aside for a moment. Let's actually think about it from a point of view of, two parties going to court on a certain subject matter. Now, what happens is you can't suddenly decide to stop at some point of time, because if you stop, then the other party is going to automatically have been a driving position, and maybe the court will pass an ex parte judgment against you. So, which means once you get into battle, you have to go and fight it all the way, right? Or you might have an out of court settlement. You might have in terms of war language, let's say you will have a ceasefire, or you will have some sort of a, peace accord signed between two countries, two nations, or two continents for that matter. But the thing is, the underlying fabric of violence hasn't really hasn't gone away anywhere. That violence is there, and which is why these wars tend to go on forever. So, something very interesting that you might realize, there is something called a war wastage ratio, war reserve ratio. Uh, Now, in this ratio, what happens is it's calculated based on if a nation went to war, how many days could you keep fighting with the ammunition that you have? Now, figures that we came across for India ranged from 20 to 40 days. We are just talking from about India as an example because that data was easy to get. We tried to search on US and China, but apparently China might survive for about a month and US might have ammunition for about 2 or 3 months. Now that seems very funny, right? Because the ammunition that these countries have is so limited. Then how come these wars go on forever? And that's obviously because once they finish their ammunition stock, somebody else is supplying that ammunition to them, which is the example that we saw in Ukraine. Ukraine finished most part of their arms, ammunition, weapons, tanks, planes, whatever they had. Then they had to get help from all their allies from around the world to give them more arms, more ammunition so they can keep fighting. Because if they don't fight, then obviously Russia is going to come across and take over the territories. No, we are not here making a judgment on who's right or wrong. We're just talking that when wars go on, they actually go on for years together. Of course, they have a lot of impact, which we will see in just a while. But at the same time, the cost factor is so prohibitive that sometimes it's even difficult for them to withdraw out of the war. So, can you take me to the next slide, please? I'll just show you some figures and estimates on why. See, it's important to know this part two of the story, which is the cost of war. Zari, next slide. All right, okay. So here is something that a very interesting sort of a picture. This is the cost of war in terms of who spends how much. Of course, I've just taken two examples here, USA and India. So USA has about $2.7 trillion of GDP. And I'm going to share just so that you understand this a little better. I'm going to come here. Show data. Yeah, this is what I wanted to share with you. This is just some, when we talk in billions and millions, sometimes we lose track of what sort of numbers are we really talking about. So, so in terms of India's GDP, I mean, this is just by the way, a calculation. If you want to understand million, billion, if you want me to stop it and just do a little mathematical 2 minute session, I'm very happy to do that. But otherwise, India's 3.5 trillion GDP is equal to almost 280 lakh crore. And we spend about 2.4% of this as our defense budget, which means it's about 6.72 lakh crore. And the figures that are there in the public domain is that last year's defense budget was about 6 lakh crores, which incidentally is equal to the personal income tax that we are paying. So that's just on the lighter side. But on the other hand, let's talk about America. So America is at $27 trillion. America's GDP is about 2,160 lakh crores, and they spend about 3.4%, which means they're spending about close to 73 lakh crores on defense, which is 12 times the amount that we spend. Now, hold on to that statement. With 73 lakh crores into defense, if America has the capability to go on with wars for about 3 months, and with 6 lakh crore every year, if a country like India can go into an intense war situation for 20 to 40 days, isn't that a little shocking to imagine the kind of money that war actually demands out of us? And this is also, it kind of justified to me that when governments have cess and income tax and all these kind of impacts that they make on us because of war and war-related activities, war-related cess, the cost is just prohibitive. Take me to the presentation again. Okay, wait a second. Before that, let me just show you something else. Very interesting. I just remembered this. See, this is why it is so expensive. Okay, it's again paramount to understand why countries spend so much. Now, country like, for example, let's say active military. Let's sort this out. Okay, let's look at this. So China has about active military of 2.1 million. And so India has how much? For example, India is the second largest army, 1.4 million. Okay. So just imagine, this is active military, this is paramilitary. If you sort of add paramilitary and all that, we have a total of 5.1 million. Um, and a small country like Korea has got 7.7 million people. I mean, basically humans who are a part of their military and paramilitary. So obviously, imagine the kind of humongous cost that is being borne by these countries. I mean, it was said that in the world wars, about a third of the GDP was wiped out to finance and fund these wars. So obviously, you can imagine the economic impact of this sort of a war. The cost is just prohibitive, humongous. Sad part is you can't even come out of it. You can't even stop somewhere midway. Show me the presentation again. So this was part two. One, wars that are happening perpetually. Part two, the cost of the war, which is so prohibitive. Now come to the impact factor. Come next. Yeah. So now this is very interesting. Okay. How many of you are really worried about the impact on the stock? Anil bhai, any opinion on this?
Sit on cash long term, it's a good opportunity. You'll
Of
be
course.
buying at lower price.
Of,
Yes,
of course.
quite a good percentage of the current investment will get wiped off. So if you are sitting with borrowed money, if you have invested, you are in trouble.
Oh, of course, of
But
course.
with
We
your own
never, we
money
never.
and you can sustain, then that can give opportunity to buy new stocks.
So let me tell you what happened in the stock market, friends. You will be
Yeah,
amazed.
yeah. Hi, I think this is Sachin here.
Yes, Sachin. Hi.
See, it is while we go on to that slide of what is the impact, we need to understand the reason or the motive behind the war rather than reason the motive.
Mhm.
See, one motive is there is enmity, right, between the two countries or the two
Sure.
parties that are fighting it. Uh, and to make the situation complex, there is somebody else has a motive, and as a invisible hand, they are probably promoting it or sponsoring it, and that's where that motive, whether that motive is really grabbing the land, showing power, or there is some economic uh, reason for it, that would actually be important in at least in the major wars
Of
that are
course, of
supposed to
course.
see. The Israel and Hamas is a different dimension altogether. India
Sachin,
Pakistan could
Sachin,
be
I
on
have
the
to
similar
stop you
lines.
there. Sachin, just one second. I want to stop you there. See, sorry for that interruption, but we don't want to go into the political side of the war. We are here because you see, a lot of times the messages that I got and the interactions that happen, and for a moment, what Anil I just said, that people are very worried that war is happening, things might cascade into something which is crazy, things might actually be horribly destructive, and everything, the world will sort of get over. So I will come back to you in just a little while, Sachin, where we will talk about motive and all these things when we are doing this little open discussion there, because that can go into everywhere. But I just wanted to actually soothe a lot of nerves, because my nerves got soothed, and I want to share that with you. And you will all be very, very pleased to know what I'm about to share with you in terms of the impact of these wars. Okay, look at this. This is amazing. Now, we have taken, for example, this eight different wars, and these wars are of the last 100 years. Okay, so this, I mean, the data is there. As you can see, we've gone even into the Kalinga War and all that, but we of course did not have so much of data that we could see there. But these are the last eight. Let's talk about World War One very quickly. What happened in the 1 month after the war broke out? The Dow Jones Index, DJI, 1 month is Dow Jones performance in 1 month. What happened is it went down by about 11%, okay, in 1 month. So from the date of the war, in the next 30 days, Dow Jones went down 11%. Now, something very strange happened in history in World War One. What happened was that the market itself was then shut for the next 4 months. The market was shut. This is the only time in the history of the stock markets of the world that the market was shut. Okay. Then, when the market opened in the next 1 year, Dow Jones went up 90%. This is an outlier. I thought this was going to be the trend, but this was uh, Fortunately, unfortunately, this was not the trend. And I say fortunately because if this becomes a trend, then we know very easily what we can predict. Okay. World War II, very strange. Now, World War II started on 1st of September 1939. In the next 1 month after the World War, look what happened. Dow Jones went up by 11%. Okay, I am here. So okay, let me just use some annotations. I'm here now in 11.72. What happened to Dow Jones in the
So,
whole year?
sorry, what is this? Can you just again touch what is it? Column F. It is after the war, right?
Yes. So okay, Sachin, yes, I get it. 1 second. Let me just.
I missed that, so that's the reason I thought I'll ask this
No, no,
question.
no, no problem, no problem. Got it. Okay. This we are talking about. Let's say when the war started, it happened on 1st of September 1939. So what happened in the 30 days after 1st September 1939, which is what was the position of Dow Jones on 1st of October 1939, which is 30 days after the day the war broke out. Okay, the impact in the first 30 days or in the first 1 month. And that is what we were trying to show you. What I'm saying is that it has gone up by 11.7%, say almost 12%. Dow Jones actually went up. We think the market's going to crash. Dow Jones here showing a different story. Okay, it went up. What happened to Dow Jones 1 year? So from 1939 September to 1940 September, 1940. Okay, in that 1 year, the stock market was pretty much flat. Nothing happened. Neither it went up, neither it went down. Okay, so that's what happened. Indo-Pakistan war. Let's come to 1965 because this is more closer to home. It concerns our money and our stock markets, etc. Of course, these markets were very well functional even at that time, not as robust as they are today. But let's see what happened. So when India-Pakistan war happened, we have not taken BSE figures because it was we've just to demonstrate we've taken Dow Jones figures, but 5% up and 1 year later 10% down. Next India-Pakistan war, pretty much nothing happened. Okay, now in Kargil war, Gulf war, this is where we have better data. Okay, let me just erase Gulf war. Dow Jones was down 10% in the next 1 month. After the Gulf war started by 1991, that is almost on 1st of August 1991, 1 year later, Dow Jones was 5% up. BSE was 13% up in the next 1 month, and incidentally, BSE was up 73% 1 year after the Gulf War. Do you know why? Does anybody know why? Any guess, please?
Supply of oil was the perception.
Supply oil. I mean, guys, just think about it. 1991 की बात कर रहे हैं हम. 1991, 92 में क्या हो रहा था? 92 is the hint.
Can I?
Opening up of economy.
Yeah.
Liberalization भी हुआ था.
Liberalization.
No, more than that, because of the Gulf War, there's a lot of damage done there, and India had the biggest opportunity of business to the Gulf. So the most beneficial was to India.
Friends, all of you have forgotten Harshad Mehta. see, everyone's laughing. Harshad Mehta happened in 1992, ladies and gentlemen. So all your reasons are right. Liberalization, opening of the economy, we had very little reserves left. India was on the brink of bankruptcy. Manmohan Singh, our honorable PM at that point, flew all our gold to London. We pledged our gold, got money to run our economy. All of that, yes. This is a period, 2nd August 1990, say 1st August 1991. In the 1 year after the Gulf War broke out, our Indian market was up 73%, and Harshad Mehta was, playing a big role in that. Let's understand that also. Okay, so that is what happening. April 1992, our markets peaked, and then after they peaked, of course, we know the rest of the history what happened. But at the same time, what happened to oil? As expected, when war breaks out, oil went up 25% in the next 1 month. But in the next 1 year, it cooled off by 14%. So nice and easy. Gold, pretty much no impact. Gold went up 1% in the next 1 month, came down 3% in the next 1 year following the Gulf War. Okay. So now you have an idea of this. Zari, can you mute everyone, please? Yeah, thank you. Kargil War. Okay, Kargil War, Dow Jones. Okay, Kargil War was a very local thing. So Dow Jones, no impact, as you can see, -2% for the month and -5%. But that's the usual stock market activity. Okay, Kargil War. What happened? What happened here? BSC, Sensex went up 20%, 19% in the next 1 month after the Kargil War. Okay, it went up 31% in the next 1 year. Strange, isn't it? What do we think that when wars happen, markets go down? But look what happened. BSC went up 19% and 31%. Okay, let's talk about oil. Oil went down 10%. What should have actually happened to oil? See, we are an oil importing nation. When war happens, when war happens, friends, what happens is a lot of resources and money goes into the war, right? All other activities stop. And the focus of the government, the focus of our entire machinery is let's fight the war. So, because we are all fighting the war, all other activities get stunted. And because we have to keep importing oil, we need more oil. But oil actually went down internationally 10%, which means it was following its own journey. It had nothing to do with us. Excuse me. At the end of 1 year, oil was up 35%. Again, nothing to do with us or the Kargil war. It was doing its own thing. Gold was in its own journey, 8% up for the month and -9% for the whole year. So basically, Kargil war had zero impact on oil. Kargil war had zero impact in terms of gold, but it had a very positive impact on our portfolio. So Gulf War, we had a big plus because thank you to Harshad Mehta. Kargil War, we had a big plus on our portfolio. Now, okay, 1999 was the time, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we had the technology boom happening around the whole world. April 2000 was the technology boom. And after that, of course, which is known as the very famous technology crash that happened. So this was the beginning of the technology boom happening around the world. What are we concluding from here? That despite the fact that war is happening, economics is moving on its own, commerce is moving on its own, industry is moving on its own. So is war large enough so that commerce and economics gets hampered, or commerce and economics follow its own course and war mein jo hota hai wo hone do? Okay, let's leave that thought there for a moment. Let's come to Russia-Ukraine war, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Very recent, right? February 22, this happened. Dow Jones -3% in the next 1 month and -7% in the next 1 year, which means it's followed its own journey, had nothing to do with, I mean, I'm sure it had something, but when you look at it very objectively from a stock market point of view, you'll see what the hell, no impact. Okay, BSC, our Sensex, -3% in the next 1 month that Russia invaded Ukraine. After 1 year, which is in February of 23, which is this very year, it was up about 4% in the last year, Feb 22 to Feb 23. So basically no impact of the Ukraine war. Now, mind you, Ukraine and Russia is what? The wheat granary, the wheat basket of the world, the biggest manufacturers and exporters of wheat and bread around the world. Of course, there were problems there, supply shortage, oil had an issue. We started buying oil from Russia. We have been buying all along. Inflation went up. Those things happened. But here we are talking about, should we really, the question we are trying to answer is, should we really be panicking, or should we actually have the reaction that we are trying to have because of these wars happening? Or should we actually make some decisions based on the hard facts and data that we have in front of us? So, I mean, some points are good, some points are not so good. These points are good that, actually wars have been happening forever. I just showed you Russia and Ukraine have been fighting for the last maybe 50 years. Okay, Israel and Arabs are fighting for the last 75 years. Just the way the Kashmir issue has been a burning issue for the last 75 years. So, that means life is going on. Okay, what happens is when these wars are happening, escalation of military conflict or military involvement shoots up. I think from a very business and commerce point of view, maybe that's one way to look at it. Okay, what happened in Russia's invasion in terms of oil? As expected, oil went up 11-12% in the next 1 month, but it came down in the next 12 months. Gold, pretty much no impact. See, what do we expect? We expect that when there is disturbance, when there is fear, when there is, all these activities happening, suddenly gold should go up because everybody will automatically run towards gold because people are worried, people are fearful of what will happen to their wealth and their money and their assets. So they run to gold. But really, has gold really performed? Has gold really given you the reward for your fear? The answer is no. Oil pretty much has just reacted. Oil has been spiking, So the point I'm trying to make here is that a lot of times we are overreacting. We are overreacting because the media has told us so. We are fed with all this information. But when we saw these facts, we figured, well, it's not so crazy. It's not so fearful. We should not be so much worried. Because at the end of the day, these wars and these political conflicts, economic conflicts are happening for times immemorial. They're happening forever. So we should not, in fact, we should be looking at every such opportunity. And if we had surplus money, maybe we should invest further. Okay, so then we come to the presentation. So basically, Israel war also, actually nothing has really happened. Now see, I also want to put a caveat here that if this culminates into some sort of a world war all across, other countries start joining in and everybody starts fighting with everybody, yes, the result could be something else. But we just saw that in World War I and World War II especially, the markets did not get impacted so much. They got impacted, but they came back. I mean, something to keep at the back of mind. But on the front of gold and oil, I want to make a point here. You see, I think people understand that wars are a very long and prolonged activity. So, therefore, oil immediately reacts to it, but then within about 6-12 months, it cools off. So, not so bad. So, it does not add to the inflation in the country. Gold actually spikes up when there was so much of fear, like the fear of COVID. So, when there are natural disasters, tsunamis, these kind of biohazards, which are like happening on a global level, the COVID happened now. Something similar happened in terms of the Spanish flu, which happened in 1918, almost 100 years before, 102 years before COVID happened. Those kind of events actually make a big difference to gold holdings because they can really shoot up at that time because everybody wants to have, like a rush to the safe haven kind of a situation. Go to the next section, please. So look at the impact. The impact was pretty muted, right? Okay, next. Okay, now here I want to show and I want to share a video with you. Okay, it's a small little clip. It's a news clip. Okay, but very interesting. And here it is. Please tell me if you can.
They say there are no winners in a war. While that may be
New share. Okay, you can't see the sound. Okay, hold on, please. Share sound and. Just a minute. And here, let me just play. It's a short 3-minute thing, but very interesting. I want you to just focus on a few points and I'll stop the video in between.
They say there are no winners in a war. While that may be true, there are, for sure, those who benefit from this war. And as thousands get butchered in the war, there are companies that are bagging money. US defense stocks are skyrocketing. There has been a historic surge this week. How much exactly? Almost $30 billion. Just as the Hamas fired some 5,000 rockets towards Israel, Wall Street started pumping dollars into its defense sector. Big players like the United States and Russia are going to capitalize. As they say, war is good for business. The US dominates the arms market. It is home to the top 5 manufacturers in the world: Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, RTX, formerly known as Raytheon Technologies, and General Dynamics. Last year, the top 5 weapons contractors made $196 billion. As of now, who is making how much? iShares US Aerospace and Defense ETF stocks rose 6%. It was its best day since...
Friends, ETF rose 6%. That 6% doesn't look like a big deal. But this is an index which has gone up 6%. So when an index goes up 6%, there are stocks below it which have gone anywhere from 3% to 25%. And that's why the index went up 6%. Please note, ETF is an exchange-traded fund. It's an index which went up. Aerospace and defense.
2020, shares of arms makers are also up. Lockheed Martin rose 9%. Northrop Grumman was up 11%. Both the firms notched best days in years. RTX rose 5%. General Dynamics climbed 6%. Leidos Holdings Inc. was up almost 4%. The bottom line is defense companies are making merry as mayhem unfolds in Israel and Palestine. The US is more than keen on supporting Israel. It has already started sending military aid. While Israel is being armed, in truth, the US government is doing a favor to its weapon contractors. It's not just the defense market that is booming. Oil prices are also up. It's giving deja vu. This is exactly what had happened after war broke out in Ukraine. While Israel isn't a big producer of oil, the rest of West Asia is. It accounts for nearly a third of global oil supply, and the war is fueling oil prices. The West Texas Intermediate crude climbed 4.3%.
This is exactly why the oil has been spiking up. See, these news that come in, they sort of rattle us. Well, we don't know how to react. The first thing that happens is all oil companies around the world. So they're talking about American companies, Indian companies, same story. Start looking at what happened to Hindustan Petroleum, Bharat Petroleum, Indian Oil. Look at oil sector across the board starts moving. Because obviously what's going to happen is we are an oil dependent market. We have to import oil, remember. So inflation and more oil import, price goes up. Obviously, we are going to have more inflation, and that's the trouble, immediate trouble.
US-based ExxonMobil Corp closed at 3.5% higher. Chevron Corp climbed 2.8%. In the UK, Shell plc and BP plc both advanced about 2.6%. Australia's Woodside Energy Group and Santos also gained. If the conflict spreads to other oil-producing nations in the region, especially Iran, there could be severe repercussions for the global economy. But do you know who did not gain anything? Israel. Israel-linked stocks have fallen anything.
Sorry.
Israel.
I just want to make one point here. See, what is she saying? Now this is it going to affect your wallet? See, this is a very good clip, okay, from Wion News. But when they say things
anything.
like...
Israel.
One second.
But do you know?
How will the war in Israel affect your wallet? Now, this is what gives us the anxiety and stress. You see, now this is the not so good part of the media. So we have seen some hard facts that, look, it actually does not affect our wallet so much. But when it is sensationalized in this manner, then we also sort of first start worrying for a short period of time. Oh my God, let me protect my money. Sometimes we'll get a call saying, let's remove money from equity, so on and so forth. I mean, just examples, right? So let's sort of move forward.
Shinjuku department store, which also fell 0.9%. In Singapore, Israeli venture capital firm Trendlines Limited fell 2.2%. The Haifa port are in vacuum. They create ripples, which are eventually going to reach you and me.
Look at this. Look at this sentence. They create ripples which are eventually going to lead to you and me. How sensational is this? I mean, this is media. They are media at their best. And they are doing a fabulous job. I actually am quite a fan of their Wion channel. They do a fabulous job in terms of reporting. But sometimes, वो मसाला डाल के थोड़ा सा आता है ना तड़का डाल के, so that actually messes it up for us. It just messes with our brains. So my sense is, let's look at the facts. It's very difficult to isolate this. Honestly, I mean, Zarir and my team, I've been sharing with them. This is the one episode of MMF which took the largest amount of time in terms of research to put together. Because first we thought we'll get data like crazy. Just like all of you were thinking, there would have been huge ups and downs around the market last 50 years, 70 years, 100 years. But when you actually look at the facts, you feel, khoda pahad nikla chuha. Matlab, itna to kuch hua hi nahi hai. In a sense. Sorry, can you go back to the presentation quickly? All right, so this is what it's saying. Saab doesn't only make your granddad's car. 81% of sales of Saab actually comes from selling arms. Saab is basically a car manufacturer. Okay, we saw the video which talked about how some of these US companies were making profit. But if you think about it, next slide, please. If you think about it, it's not only Saab. And like, the lady Priyanka Sharma, I think, she was saying that war is good for business. I mean, that's really sad, right? I mean, I hope in our lives we never have to go across to a war or to live in a war-torn zone. But it's very bad for the people who are in that war, like the people who are living in Israel, and for the people who are living, the civilians that are living in Israel and Palestine, for that matter, Ukraine, and for that matter, even the area surrounding Ukraine and Russia, where the movement of military and artillery is happening. But if you think about it, what does war do? We've seen pictures, buildings are blown up, roads are blown up, there is severe shortage of everything. The only thing that is moving is military and military related equipment. You have your guns get over, you finish your guns, you finish your bullets, you finish your missiles. What do? You are in the market looking for more missiles. So this is happening in the countries who are at war. Countries, they destroy each other's buildings and infrastructure. Of course, you have lots of graveyards that are created, but at the same time, buildings which have been brought down, there's building industry that actually benefits, construction industry, there is energy industry, fuel, automobiles, these are medical supplies. These are just pictures to give you an idea that a war brings along with it so much of destruction, which we all know, but we sometimes sort of become a little short-sighted, if I may say, that we don't really see that there is a lot of uh, reconstruction effort which that country will have to do if they have the money. They'll, of course, they'll have to borrow money if they don't have the money, but for the benefit of its citizens, they'll have to do the best that they can. And what will happen as a result of that is contracts and orders will go to people all around the world. So the not so good part is that there are military manufacturers and the defense equipment manufacturers which will make a lot of money. But then the other little positive part, I mean, it's contra positive. It's not really a very great thing to be happy about. That किसी के नुकसान पे अगर हम अपना महल बनाते हैं, तो it's not a very nice feeling. But the fact is that if roads and ports and buildings have been broken down in these war-torn countries, and if an Indian company gets the order to go and reconstruct it, well, the Indian company is going to benefit. At the end of the day, the logic in the story is so simple.